Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darragh O'Connor on the...
Alright, and we're live. Hope you guys like the new intro. We finally fixed the YouTube problem. Yes! So, that's great. How are you, Dave? How's it going, man?
Doing fantastic. How you doing, Darragh?
I'm doing really well. Guys, welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, episode 23. This is the long-awaited Money in the Bank retrospective that we were supposed to do last week, but all the news happened, so we couldn't. But, hope everyone is doing well. And yeah, Dave, we have a lot to talk about this week.
We absolutely do. And if you guys are following us on YouTube, Twitch, all that good stuff, make sure you subscribe, like, hit the bell, get us in the algorithm.
Exactly.
That's all we ask.
That's all we want. That's all we want. Live shows are really getting there anyway. We're trying to improve the content all the time. So the best way you can be notified of when we go live is actually just, subscribing. You get notifications. It's as simple as that. Again, right off the bat, I want to plug our other podcast, From the Dark, which is on the channel now. It's Conspiracy City, so if anyone's into that kind of thing, check it out. It's a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. But thanks to that, all the kinks were worked out. So now the chat works, the live show works, all that stuff. So, we finally got there. It only took 2 months of messing with it to figure it out.
But I think that's the cool thing. You guys are here on the ground with us, and you get to see us rise from the kinks to what will one day, who knows?
Exactly. So we appreciate everyone's patience while we kind of work it out. But again, if you listen to this on Phoenix 92.5 FM, literally nothing has changed. Everything's exactly the same. And you're wondering, what are we talking about? Well, you should be going over to Nerd to Know Media at youtube.com or nerdtoknowmedia.com in general and subscribing to all the shows, because we have so much content, Dave. It's ridiculous. I was going through it today, and we have a retrospective piece about gladiatorial combat and ancient Rome, which is going up during the week, which I did in 2014, I think, 2012. It was 2012. It was 2012 when I was in Rome. And there's a piece about bad wrestling video games going up from 2014. All content which I found in the vault. I'm like, why is this here? Let's just move this over. So there's so much going up there that's super fun for anyone who is interested, and you should be. So Dave, look, before we get into this, we need to talk about the Becky Lynch situation and what happened there, because Money in the Bank is important and it's huge, but this week's Money in the Bank, or this year's Money in the Bank in the female sense anyway, wasn't for what we thought it was for. It wasn't for a contract. It was actually for the belt itself, because the man impregnated Seth Rollins, and now that's what.
That's exactly how it works.
That's exactly how it works. My understanding of it. Now Becky Lynch has forfeited the title. This is not a storyline, which, it's not a storyline, which you think it is, and Greg McNeil says everything's a work. I don't think this was a work. There were some people saying that Asuka should have spit. Well, CM Punk said it actually. Asuka should have spit mist into her eyes during that, which would have been cool, but also would have been like, the woman's pregnant. You should probably not do spots when you're pregnant. But according to this, right, she did a test around WrestleMania, and it was negative, and turns out the test was just faulty, and she did a better test, and yeah, she was pregnant. So she could have been wrestling the whole time pregnant, which is really worrying at the same time.
Yeah, Oh man, I guess real life is having to come into our like fun fantasy world for a second here, where we have to deal with an actual issue.
Yeah, like a real world situation, which, you know, I never thought we would be addressing this, to be honest with you, on air, but yeah, like it just kind of came out of nowhere. And at first, and I'll be honest with you, the first time I when this happened, because I was watching Raw live last week, and I had heard that she had there was lots of rumors going around that she was going to play Angelica in the Marvel movies. For anyone who doesn't know,
I thought that
the Rugrats. Yeah.
First, I thought you were going to talk about the Rugrats.
Okay.
I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know Angelica would have that accent, but fair enough.
Okay, so I should say Angelica is a character from the Spawn universe, from Image, that was ported over to the Marvel universe, and she is now the sister of Thor. So, and you know, I only know that because one, I'm a geek, and two, I have her first appearance, like ever. In very good condition. So, but basically, right, that was the rumor for like a couple of weeks, that she had got a role in the Marvel universe. She's going to be taking time off, etc., etc. So when she came out, I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird that she's doing this right now, you know. But anyway, it makes sense. And then I was on Twitter, and some guy was like, "Oh, it's the green card." I'm like, "Asuka's also on the ring. It doesn't make any sense. What you talking about?" And then she dropped the bombshell that, yeah, she's pregnant and she's going to have to take some time off. So, yeah, like, colour me surprised. This whole thing was bizarre. And Asuka came out, she gave her the belt. And, yeah, I have to say, one of the most touching segments in wrestling. You know, I think anyone, even if you're not a wrestling fan, would be, you know, your heartstrings would be tugged watching this, because it was very emotive. Apparently nobody knew backstage either, so all of that was legit, and I would tend to believe that.
I hope Seth knew. That'd be quite the shocker.
There's mixed opinions. Some people are saying he didn't know, and I'm like, you think she would have told him, like, hey, I'm going to go out to the whole world and be like, yeah, but, you know, to be fair, he played it up as the heel the entire night. You know, he was still healing it up. But, yeah, this is like wrestling and real reality kind of fusing together, because I don't even think on screen they were still portrayed. I know they had an angle where they were like an on-screen couple, but I don't think that was still like a thing that was talked about. I think it was just kind of like, oh yeah, they went off their separate ways and all that. But no, this really broke kayfabe, but also really kind of just broke everything. The show felt really weird, because it's like, on one hand you have this very real situation, and on the other hand you have Seth Rollins just being a heel, and you're like, which is it? What are you, you know? But it was still a very good segment from Becky, and, you know, it was something I won't soon forget, I'll tell you that much, from watching wrestling. It was a kind of cherry on top of this really weird year we're having, you know, where the biggest star in the company has to leave because she's pregnant.
You know, it's like we've been talking about during this entire no crowd era. Literally anything can happen.
Oh yeah, like
anything,
like literally, and we don't even know, you know. And look, what I did say to you, you know, I wouldn't mind. The worst thing about doing the show on a Monday night is it happens just before Raw, you know, and then it goes out, and it's like, heck, we missed it, you know. One thing I did say last week, that Asuka's probably going to be involved with this, get her belt back, get her win back against Becky, and yeah, that happened, kinda. So I wasn't wrong.
So where does this rank on the
cash-ins?
List of cash-ins?
Well, I wouldn't even say this was a cash-in. This was more just like, I don't know, was this a cash-in? Because there was no belt to cash in with.
Well, I mean, it was a handicap match, technically.
I tell you, if that kid doesn't go into wrestling, there's something seriously wrong. Because, like, Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, like, come on, like, that kid has to go into wrestling. There's nothing serious. There's nothing. Sure. Also, one thing about Asuka, actually, now she's like probably the highest rated wrestling female performer ever. Her track record in WWE is like better than most Hall of Famers. She's won everything. Everything. All the tag belts, the women's title, NXT, the Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank. It's like, come on, like, what is there left for her to actually do? Nothing. She has bested pretty much everybody in that company, and nobody's making a big deal out of it. You know, it's crazy. Like, it actually
I love
is crazy.
it because people always try and give the whole perspective of, oh, the WWE only likes, you know, white wrestlers, blah, blah, blah. Well, I think Asuka's a great example of how that's certainly not the case. They've pushed her to the moon and back. I
Well,
don't know
look-
if that's
well, look-
more Triple H or whatever, but
Well,
you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying, but also, like, in that ring, there was Becky Lynch and Asuka. Neither one of those are American. Neither one of those would be white
Right.
as such.
Right.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
Becky Lynch is orange, actually.
well, yeah, well, like, she's Irish, and that really doesn't count. Like, we can't even see the sun or we die. So it's like, that's, it's just, the sun is a myth in this country. So, yeah, I wouldn't really, it kind of puts, it's true. It's, it really
No,
is.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe you.
But that kind of just puts that whole thing to bed. Like, it's like, I'm sorry, like, come on, it just doesn't make any
Puts it
sense.
to bed. That's your word choice.
I want to say other things, but I am aware that this is going out on FM radio, and I don't want to swear.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's very hard. It's very hard not to
Yeah.
swear at certain times like that. Because that argument just drives me up the wall because it's absolute bullplop. It just is. I'm sorry, it just is. But yeah, fair play to Asuka, fair play to Becky. I'm actually, to be fair, on one hand I was like, oh, I'm actually really sad because I really like Becky Lynch, but also I'm like, oh, I'm really happy for her because, obviously. So it was weird, it was a very weird scenario. So hopefully, she'll come back. She probably will. But she might not, because Eve Torres just disappeared, and then she ended up marrying one of the Gracies, and now she does Gracie Jiu-Jitsu videos. So I'm like, okay.
I know, they're so cool. They're so cool. I think it's worth mentioning that at the time that she relinquished her belt, she was one day short of 400 days as champion.
Right.
At 399 days, it made her the longest reign for the Raw Women's Championship in history of the WWE for Becky Lynch. So kudos to her there.
Like, she is probably, well, she's face of the company. Literally, the most overstar in the company, and it's just like, on one hand, you have to be like, well, it sucks, but also it's like, this is awesome for you as well. It's some of the people we're going to talk about on this list, but one in particular who got a really raw deal, weren't so lucky. So I wish the best to Becky. I hope she comes back. Obviously, I'm a huge fan. It's great for us in Ireland in general to have such a great performer like that there. But shocking, man. The last thing anyone was expecting, and I hope Stet was told, because that's really harsh, but also kind of funny at the same time if he wasn't. It's like, what? I found out on TV.
I have a question for you. I mean, what was that moment like? You had both Drew McIntyre and Becky Lynch as champions at the same time. I mean, I know Scotland's not Ireland, so sorry, Phoenix FM, but you know what I meant.
No. To be fair, like, Drew's was over here a lot. Like, Ian was involved in a lot of the wrestling here, so he would know both of them, and Finn and stuff like that. Finn, I think, trained them. So a lot of the guys here would have a lot of crossover, and Drew McIntyre would be one of them. So yeah, like, it's awesome that he's the champion. We loved it, and they're not, Ireland and Scotland aren't the same, but they're not different, if that makes sense. They're a lot of crossover. So once anyone from Scotland and Wales and it wins, everyone in Ireland is like, oh yeah. Anyone from England, it's like, yeah.
Finn also changed. I hope he didn't change her. Finn also trained Becky.
Yeah, he did. Well, Finn trained everybody in Ireland, basically. Yeah, he was just, that's something that we should actually bring Ian on the show to talk about. But yeah, Finn trained everybody really in Ireland. That was just what he did, before he got the call up and went to, after he came back from Japan. So yeah, it was kind of, everybody just knows him, and that's why it was such a big deal when he jumped over. But nobody expected the success that Becky Lynch had. That was just absolutely off the charts. Like, nobody was expecting that at all, particularly when you see the progression. So it's funny, and when people start going, this is another thing going about that narrative where people are like, oh, the only white guys. It's like, well, no, not anymore. Maybe definitely in the past.
Sure.
Maybe you under Vince, he did have a specific guy and a specific look, but in the past at least 5 years, that's just not true. Demonstrably not true.
Absolutely not true.
It's nonsense. It's pure, utter bullplop. But yeah,
that's what people like this. pick a narrative and stick to it and get their point across.
Look, and
regardless of what the facts are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look, and I'm all for narrative. Narratives are fun, but at least have the narrative to make sense. You know, and this just, in this day and age, just does not make sense. Like, Becky still would have been champion. She probably would have been champion through SummerSlam, and if not to WrestleMania, and then probably dropped it. But, you know, now she'll go off, she'll have her kid, come back, and then things will be like normal. But it's just a weird time, man, because they lost their biggest star. And the worst thing about this is, I used it, again, forgive me, I'm not saying worst. You know what I mean? Worst thing for WWE from a business standpoint. There's no babyface to take over from her. You know, there's nobody who can really take over from Becky Lynch here. Like, Asuka's kind of a face now because by proxy, but it's like, it just doesn't really, you know, they're kind of screwed. You know, what are they going to do?
I don't know. I think the fact that they have so much freedom they do have a huge roster, so I think there's people that can come up, and if you have Asuka as a face, then you just fill it with heels. In the meantime, I guess I will say, when watching this year's Money in the Bank, Asuka well and far outperformed every other female talent in that match. And she was the favorite of everybody I've talked to. Everybody said she was their favorite.
Asuka is probably one of the best female wrestlers in the world, if not one of the best wrestlers in the world, period. So, it just is what it is, you know. She can do the face thing. Maria Ripley would have been a good shout to do it, but she is kind of recovering from that loss to Charlotte. Charlotte is in NXT. You know, they could do worse than Asuka, but it's a very weak presentation, in my opinion, to only have yourself locked in this way. And maybe they might learn in the future. You know, like this is the equivalent to getting injured, because it's kind of are, and it's like, they didn't plan for it, and we've seen this before happening with the male wrestlers where they go down with an injury, and then bang, you have nobody. You know, so I think it just goes to prove now that we're past the point of female wrestlers being a side attraction, and they actually need to be really taught, okay, cool, they're up to the main roster, but what's the problems with that? And one of the problems is if they get injured or pregnant. That's such a weird sentence. Injured or pregnant.
Yeah, I know, out of context.
Out of context,
be like, this showdown, this misogynist from Ireland.
How dare they burn everything. But in context, this makes sense, right? What are they going to do? Well, this is why you need to have your list of baby faces, your list of heels, and actually build them up. You know, like, it's a shame, because Bayley would be great for this, but Bayley's off being one of the best heels there, so it's like,
she's so good.
She's great, and it's just like, what do you do? Who do you put into that spot? And I think, you know, while Asuka's a good show, a lot of the women are just better as heels.
Yeah, if we're purely speculating right here, do you think that there's pressure on the female performers not to get pregnant?
I would say it's as similar as anything else. You know, it's a career, it's a choice that most women probably have to make anyway. You know, do you go for the career, do you go for the family? And it just is what it is, right? And it's obviously their prerogative. But I would say in this case, there probably was. Like, I know Becky, she was saying she never thought it would happen. But she definitely probably didn't think it would happen, you know, now, during the biggest run of her career. But, like, it is what it is, I suppose, you know, it's that choice. And I wouldn't say there's pressure for them not to, because, you know, that's monstrous.
It is monstrous, but
monstrous.
this is the WWE we're talking about.
That is
we're purely speculating.
We are. But I would say, you know, Stephanie is there, and Triple H is there, and they're not. Triple H is no monster, so it's like I would say not.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, that's why I didn't say Vince, because I'm like, yeah, probably he's kind of nuts. So, but yeah, I would say, you know, there is some kind of allowances for this, and this is just kind of something that's going to have to be made allowance for. It's going to have to be the way that it is. You know, people want to have families, and at the end of the day, this is a job.
It's a job.
And it's like any other job, you know, you can't just be like, oh, how dare you? One, that's horrific. And two, it's their choice, and people can do whatever they want with their body, right? So,
yeah. I think the only thing that makes it a little bit more complicated is because it's wrestling, because technically they're independent contractors. I don't know how WWE handles this. Does she not get income during the time that she's out because she's not working?
I wouldn't say so. She might get her downside.
She'll get royalties for sure, right? Downside, but she's going to miss out on.
Yeah, what I would say is, you know, I would say they probably judge this like injury. And if you're injured, you're obviously getting your downside probably in your royalties, and that's probably it. But you have Seth Rollins, who's making millions, so I think she'll be good. I think they'll be good, but she probably is getting her downside, and that's, probably more than what most people make anyway. So, give it 11 months, a year. She'll be back this time next year.
And when she comes back, she'll come back to, a crowd, which will have even more of an impact. So, and that, that's one of the things I noticed. Excuse me, guys. That's one of the things I noticed when I was looking into the Money in the Bank matches. I went back and I watched the first ever Money in the Bank match that happened at WrestleMania in 2005. Chris Jericho, of course, being the guy that came up with it. And I have to take back a comment I made last week about how I thought it was the best Money in the Bank match I've ever seen.
No, not
I mean, the cinematography is awesome, but when you take the crowd out of it, oh my gosh, it's not the same. No. Watching cash-ins, getting that fan reaction, it's really not. I think sometimes I try my best to put a positive spin on things instead of just saying, yeah, I'm sorry. I know it could be better, but we're trying the best we can. Yeah,
and that's all you can do. As I said, the great thing of this show is it's all opinion. We're not sitting here as wrestling journalists, we're sitting here as fans.
No.
And that's why we get to kind of go back and have a look at these out of, in context with us, out of context with some perspective. Because, we both covered these events probably at the time. And it's it's a lot more fun now to go back and watch them without covering a show or all that other garbage that we had to do.
No, absolutely. And that's what makes us the only wrestling podcast hosted by fans that don't hate wrestling.
Exactly, because we get to enjoy it and look back.
Yeah.
But one thing I do have to say, when I was watching these, that video you posted was great on our YouTube page. If you guys haven't seen it, go over to the Pro Wrestling Rewind, not the Pro Wrestling Rewind, sorry, the Wrestling Rewind Facebook page, and you'll get to see it there.
Yeah, and on that note, just before we jump, guys, one of the best ways that you can stay in contact with us during this crazy era of deplatforming, if who knows what could happen, make sure you are going to Nerd to Know Media. You can get links to all the different Facebook pages that we have. Each of our shows has their own, and then they all filter then into the bigger Nerd to Know Media Facebook page. So there will always be a way for you to get in touch with us, in contact with us. If you can't find us on YouTube because something happened at some point, there will be a way for you to still find the show.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. There is a contingency set up if that happens. Thankfully it hasn't. Hopefully it won't. But yeah, Nerd to Know Media is the best place to reach us directly all the time. And nerdtoknowmedia@gmail.com is also the overall email address to reach us. But I will have to say, before we get into these rundowns, I love the video. It brought back a lot of memories for me. So many, it was actually ridiculous. A few that I remember, particularly for different reasons. One, when Edge cashed in on The Undertaker, I remember going into college and Gary texted me. He goes, "Did you hear what just happened?" And this was text message. This was on Facebook. So it was actually literally a text message. And I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. I remember Edge cashing in on John Cena. I was doing some homework in fifth year, which was the year before you finished school. And I remember watching New Year's Revolution because you'd have to record it and then watch it when you came back from school. That's how we had to do it, Dave. It was fun. Literally on a VHS tape, literally on a VHS, a big stack of VHS tapes, and you're like, oh, I'm sitting there all day. Please, no one tell me the results. You stick it in and then you watch it. So I remember watching it, and it happened, going, oh wow, this is crazy. John Cena won. I remember being bummed by that because I hate John Cena. I know you. I know. No. There's a reason. I'll tell you the reason if you don't know it, but there is a good reason.
Bring it. Let's just bring it. What's the reason, Derek?
The reason why I hate John Cena is because my first WWE house show, Triple H was going against John Cena for the title.
There's the bias, guys. I just want you to note the bias. Right there. You have a guy who is beloved to Triple H, and he's about to tell us why Triple H made him hate John Cena. Okay, please continue with your non-biased reason.
I fully say it's biased. There's no denying that it's biased. But no, the reason why is because John Cena beat Triple H. And I wanted Triple H to win. And I was just like, oh god damn it, I hate you so much. And yeah. So there you go.
That's so Darragh of you.
Yeah, I know. What can I say? If I had been anyone else, I would have been like, alright, whatever. And to be fair, I did actually like John Cena. I like John Cena in hindsight, because remember, I wasn't watching wrestling from 2003 to 2005, 2006. So
that's why you like Triple H.
Yeah, because I missed all of it. You know, I only have good memories.
It was not a fun time if you liked any wrestler other than Triple H to watch wrestling.
Then I would have liked it anyway. You know, it was fine.
You wouldn't. You wouldn't.
But yeah,
you think John Cena holds people down? Good Lord.
Well, fair, but you know, Triple H should have all the belts all the time. Still.
Oh my god. Yeah, like he should come out like Ultimo Dragon would in WCW.
All the belts.
With like 15 belts around him.
Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, when he had that last run, before the Royal Rumble, I loved it. I was like, this is great. Why can't we have this all the time? You know, so it's just like, it's fine. Triple H can do no wrong, literally, in my book. And that's just the way it is. That's my bias. But yeah, that's why I hate John Cena, because he took that from me.
I think that's hilarious.
But anyway,
hilarious.
It's true. But while I was watching this, I remember being sad because John Cena was champion. I was like, oh my god damn it. And then Edge came out and won. I was like, wait, Vince McMahon's coming out. This is weird. I've never seen this before. And he cashed in and you're like, oh, this is a thing that can happen now. Holy cow. And just changed the whole dynamic.
Yeah, we didn't really know how the cash-ins were going to work at that point. We knew they could cash in, but the fact that they were going to cash in when somebody was actually down and out. And I think we'll get into this, but we saw the evolution of... There's your Triple H pun, I guess. We saw the evolution of the way that people cashed in Money in the Bank, because it wasn't always consistent in terms of how referees reacted, in terms of all that. But the very first time, which is what Darragh is talking about, Vince McMahon himself came out with Edge and announced that, you know, the Money in the Bank is being cashed in. Now, what bigger stamp of approval can you get than the boss walking out with you, so you know this is legitimate?
Well, I think at the time there was that belief that he was going to cash it in at WrestleMania, because he'd held on to it from WrestleMania to WrestleMania, and it was only at WrestleMania as well, that it wasn't its own pay-per-view at the time. So, like, it was 2 months away from WrestleMania, and it was a kind of... New Year's Revolution was like a throwaway pay-per-view anyway. It was a weird pay-per-view to have, because it was like just before the Rumble and nobody really cared. And yeah, when this was happening, it was like, okay, I guess you can cash in anytime. I know that had been said, but everyone was just expecting for him to go all the way to WrestleMania. So he cashed in. 2006 then again, with RVD winning it. RVD pretty much from the get-go was like, yeah, I'm telling you right now, it's happening at ECW, One Night Stand.
That, to me, we're mentioning it now. I went through the list. I watched every single cash-in. I even watched several of the matches themselves. And I expect it to be like everybody and say, Seth Rollins, WrestleMania 31, that was the best cash-in in the history of the WWE.
It wasn't.
But as I pulled myself back into it, I don't know if anything compares to the RVD one, because there was legitimate doubt.
Yeah.
When Seth Rollins came out, yes, the pop was huge. The actually happening at WrestleMania was huge, but you knew he was going to win at that point.
Yeah, like, look...
With RVD, we did not know.
No, we didn't. And RVD, while he was a big star, he wasn't a big star. He was like a solid upper mid-card guy. He had won the US belts. He won the tag belts. You know, he was in that picture, but you never thought he'd win it. And this was his push. You know, I think a lot of the guys here that we're going to talk about, particularly with the Money in the Bank, it's kind of a kiss of death in some ways, because a lot of misfortune happens at the same time. And this was one of them. RVD... It's
literally like winning the lottery, right? You have support groups for people.
Exactly, yeah. And this is kind of like, with watching some of these guys going through them, particularly actually all the way through, it's kind of a hit and miss of what's going to happen. But with RVD, they put the belt on him to build this ECW brand around him.
Yes.
He had the 2 belts. I remember being disgusted at the time because he still kept the spinner belt. I'm like, ugh. Like,
even on commentary, Joey Styles asked, "Can we get rid of the spinner belt?"
Yeah, spinner belt. Like, don't get me wrong, spinner belt was great as a heel move. It's like the People's Elbow. People's Elbow is awesome as a heel move. When you're doing it as a face, doesn't really make a hell of a lot of sense. Same with the spinner belt, doesn't really make a hell of a lot of sense. But anyway, it was what it was. I got over.
I love personalized belts, though. I love when Austin did it. You know.
Yeah,
I
Austin
think
belt was
they're
cool.
really cool.
The Rock's belt that he never used was cool. The Brahma
never
Bull.
used it,
He never used it. It was still a nice design. But yeah, like, it's one of those things where, because of his own personal stuff, drug use and such, getting busted, it knocked him out. It killed the ECW brand dead on arrival, like, after that. And by 2006, it was pretty much finished. So, that pop, but go back and watch that pop. The second event wasn't great. I remember because it came back from Metallica. Metallica was on the same day. And obviously, it was finished at like 12. So I got back at 1 in the morning. I'm like, oh, wrestling, cool. And I sat down and watched it and just remember thinking it was unbelievable. I remember thinking the event itself was kind of lacking, but that main event made up for it. The fact that RVD was getting his title run, Edge appearing, spearing Cena through it, and Paul Heyman counting. So many questions though if that was legit.
Right?
You know, because you're like,
but it's ECW rules.
Yeah,
I think
that
Heyman had done that in the past, so I think it was acceptable.
Yeah, I was like, is this actually? Oh, is this kosher? Is this okay? Oh, this is okay. And yeah,
that was a nice Paul Heyman reference. Was this kosher?
Oh right,
well done.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, and it was kind of like he was announced the ECW champion, which was also weird because you're like, we have an ECW champion now. Okay, I guess we do. So a lot of questions from that one.
I think it was cool for the atmospheric effect, like before the match. Yes. The only match that comes to mind, which also happened to happen at a Money in the Bank pay-per-view, was the CM Punk John Cena match. Mm-hmm. And I mean, again, these are matches that the crowds made the match. I mean, the matches themselves were very good, but Cena in the RVD match trying to throw his shirt out to the crowd, and the crowd kept throwing it back. And I mean, I think it's the most vulgar main event in the history of WWE. If you listen to the crowd, I'm shocked that the WWE Network didn't edit that out, because they went through a phase where they were editing a lot of things out. But yeah, you want to hear some really naughty language, listen to that.
Well, they really hated John Cena, like legit, you know. And obviously there was the "if Cena wins, rewrite it," which was a fun sign at the time, but it's just cringy when you see it now or anything similar to it. You're like,
well, it was the first time. I mean, it wasn't the first time. I'm sure it had happened before, but it was the first time that they actually focused in on the sign. And then we can call back later to the CM Punk match. That's one of the signs that stuck out from that match. Like, Cena wins, we riot.
But like the difference was, this was like palpable. Like, you actually kind of believed if Cena won, there would have been a reaction.
There is a moment in the match when RVD goes out into the crowd and Cena follows him after, and you see WWE security just flank Cena, because I wouldn't put it past some of those fans to try and stab the dude. I mean, John Cena got stabbed in real life at one point.
Wow.
Forget that.
Did not know that.
2004 or 5, he was at a bar.
Right.
And somebody stabbed him. I could be making that up. I really hope that's true. If it's not, that's
let us know in the comments below if Dave is.
Yeah, I remember that.
If Dave is sticking up for his boy too much, trying to make us.
I'm trying to create sympathy.
Guys. Exactly. But no, you know who I do feel sorry for? I feel sorry for Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy had like the worst luck ever with this, where he won the belt and he's like, right, I'm going to wait until WrestleMania, and then he gets injured. Edge beats him for it. And then it turns out he wasn't injured at all. And it's like, oh man, that sucks.
It turns out if you piss off one of Triple H's friends, like Randy Orton, you can get fired from the company. Well, figure.
Well, this was much later. Oh, Cena also was involved in that. Don't forget. It was Cena and Orton.
I don't remember that part. I don't remember that.
But no, it was more just kind of like when he won, it was like, oh cool, he's actually going to, do this, and he's going to do it at WrestleMania, because this was still kind of like, up until this point, we hadn't seen it actually happen, and the fact he said it was like, okay, cool. And then, he just gets booted out, and Edge wins. Now, Edge had a pretty cool cash-in with, on Taker. That was when, because this was over the course of like two days. So Edge obviously wins it, cashes on Taker, and then you have the second big run. But what do you think about that? Like, that was, at the time I remember thinking, when Kennedy wasn't injured, I was like, why doesn't he have some kind of return on this? It feels kind of
It was
cheap.
very confusing to us at the time. There were always rumors going around that he wasn't well liked in the locker room. What stands out to me the most is that because of all of that happening, we found out that Hornswoggle is Vince McMahon's son.
Yeah. Well, that was,
Because originally it was supposed to be Mr. Kennedy. Because
was.
of, the last name, and those aren't aware, Vince's middle name is Kennedy.
Yeah.
So they were going to do like a tie-in. That was going to be a cool character. He was going to get pushed to the moon.
That
They
was
just
his big
decided
push.
to
And
do green.
it just went. He did have a pretty good run in TNA, though, I will say. It was kind of like the high spot of TNA for a while. Mr. Anderson. That shirt was still cool. He still had the coolest shirt in wrestling, though.
That was cool. He just became a character of himself.
Yeah.
I felt over time when he started getting into the whole, like, I'm an asshole thing. I was like, come on.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Punk's cash-ins, mixed bag.
Mixed bag.
The first one, obviously, that was when he did nothing for him. He pretty much was just a fluke champion. It's a really bad run in context. Second one, though, against Jeff Hardy, so much better. This was when he was doing the straight edge society thing, or starting to lean into more of a heel, and that was a lot better.
Those promos from that era against Jeff Hardy, when he was calling Jeff Hardy out for the
drugs.
drug addiction stuff and everything, and saying I'm better than you, but it's funny because if you watch it as a wholesome viewer, you'd be like, why is he the bad guy? He's saying really reasonable things. He's saying things that kids should be looking up
Yeah,
to.
I know.
But it doesn't matter because it's Jeff Hardy.
And that was it. And at the time, I remember thinking, Punk is right. Like, what's going on, Jeff Hardy? And then a couple of years later, we would see Jeff Hardy going to jail or getting arrested for all the drugs in the world.
Yeah, we saw this on the Vice documentaries when they would talk about how sometimes the real life storylines are the greatest storylines that you can write for wrestling, but sometimes they hit a little too close to home and we see tragic results because of them. I mean, I'm thankful, honestly, that nothing seriously ever happened to Hardy to the point that we lost him, because he was close. He was on the brink.
Look, different times probably would have. He would have been a footnote. But luckily, things were said. Look, for all the bad stuff that happened with the wellness violation and also the whole point of the wellness violation, policy violation thing, that probably saved his life. The fact that exists. Because, even when you're watching the Dark Side of the Ring, like, this week was Animal and Hawk, and that could just easily have been Jeff Hardy. Easily.
I haven't had a chance to watch it. Is it good?
It's very good, yeah, it's really good.
All right.
It's really good.
I used to love them as a tag team, because I just always loved the concept that they would get into the ring, and if they really hated their opponents, they would threaten not to remove their spiked shoulders, and the opponents would be like, I'm not wrestling you.
But I forgot how over they were.
Oh,
I forgot the Road Warriors were. You're like, wow, these guys were a big deal, because as a kid, everyone's kind of a big deal. And then when you get some sense, you're like, I don't know, But going back and watching, like, yeah, these were like the real deal. And it was very good, but watching it, I'm like, this could be a Jeff Hardy,
Yeah.
Oh, Monster Mutt has chimed in. I'm glad CM Punk is back in the ring and out of my cinema, to be honest. Yeah, that movie he was in was pretty awful.
What was the name of it?
Oh, I can't remember. It's something about they're dead in the walls or some garbage like that.
I don't know. And all those complaints about not being in the WWE Studios films, maybe we know now why.
To be fair, there's a really good WWE Studios movie, Oculus.
I heard very good things about it.
That's
Is
great.
that the one with Halle Berry?
No, that's The Call. That's where she's like a emergency responder.
Something like that. Yeah.
No,
The Call. Right. I got you.
Girl on the Third Floor. Thank you, Monster Mutt. Girl on the Third Floor is the name of the awful CM Punk movie, which I'm probably going to watch later because I want to see how bad it is myself.
I gotta see it, right?
But no,
CM Punk's kind of like the kind of more like Vince McMahon than I think he would like to admit.
Yeah.
He's really good at wrestling and wrestling related things,
and wants to be everything but wrestling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not great at the UFC. Over here in California, well, I don't live in California. I live on the East Coast, but over in California, they're starting to open things up very slowly during this odd times that we live in. And one of the things that they said they were opening up was they were going to allow soft martial arts. Right. And I was like, what's a soft martial art? And then the comedian Tony Hinchcliffe chimed in. I think soft martial arts would be CM Punk.
yeah. Like it's funny because like I I'm friends with some of the people who run the comic stuff here in Ireland, because Ireland's tiny and, you know, comic books aren't really a big thing. But I know I'm pretty good friends with one of the guys who owns one of the major stores here, and he's like, yeah, Punk's a nice guy. I'm like, yeah, cool, yeah, it makes sense, because they're both punk rockers and stuff. But I'm just like, yeah, even then, that's when he was writing comics for Marvel, and he wrote like a Hulk story, and I'm like, yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. You know, no, it was like, it wasn't bad. That's the problem. It was just a Hulk story.
Right.
It wasn't anything. You know, if it had been bad, it would have been at least something to write home about. But yeah. But look, apparently Punk's a nice guy in real life. But
yeah, as long as you stay on his good side, he likes you.
Just stick to wrestling.
I love him. Like, that's the thing. Like, I know we're kind of riding down the guy, but at the same time, I'll sit back and I will watch, you know, I'll go on YouTube and I'll look up CM Punk's greatest moments and just listen to his promo skills. And I'm not just talking about the pipe bomb. I'm talking about his back and forth with Triple H, his straight edge society back and forth with people. I mean, when you rank people on the stick, as you know, as you would say, you've got Roddy Piper. You've honestly got Dean Ambrose, and you've got like CM Punk as guys that really stand out. You know, The Rock, obviously. When I'm talking, I was trying to use Piper and then segue it into like modern day ish guys who are just really stand out above everybody else. Oh yeah, no, and once someone chimed in there that the dude is super charismatic. Or yeah, he is. He's one of the most charismatic guys ever. It's just a shame that he hates wrestling. The one thing that he's like super good at, you know, I just don't get it. Here, apparently Universal Studios is opening up soon. Is that true or is that BS? I have no idea. Yeah, honestly, it sounds terrible, but I've started just blanking out on the news. Whatever they say will happen. I'm just going to listen to this. You know, I can't bring myself to care. Look, I care in terms of the human depth. Don't get me wrong. I care in terms of being a human and wanting to do my part and all of that kind of things. But I'm just so inundated with it that I just kind of got to blank it out and focus on positive things like wrestling and distractions. Look, I'll be honest with you. I was supposed to be over there next month to Florida. No, I'm sad you're not. Right? I was supposed to be in New Jersey last month, which is crazy. Right. Could have hung out. But, yeah, it's like, I'm thinking back, I'm like, how are theme parks going to reopen? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's just like, how? It just doesn't make sense. Like, Ireland's just start reopening, we begin our first phase, but like stores you can go in 2 people at a time or whatever, and there's hardware stores reopen today, and there's like, you know, apparently there was a line outside for like 2 hours outside hardware stores today. I'm like, okay, you know, that doesn't make any sense. So try to figure that out. So all I know is Sweden's doing it completely differently, and per capita they have the very similar odds to the countries that are around them. So I don't know. Look, not that they're a bastion for liberty, because trust me, Sweden's not a bastion for liberty. But they've taken a different approach, is what I'm saying, and it kind of seems like we just don't understand. Yeah, and I'm not a scientist, so I'll listen to whatever the scientists say because they're smarter. They went to school for that. I get that. I can only, look and say, I don't know. Some countries are doing some things. Some countries are doing others. Seems like we don't really know what's going on. That might be more scary than anything else. Well, there are months someone said social distance on Space Mountain. I don't think, that's... I don't know how you're going to be able to do that. You know, it's just like, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, on the one hand, I'm like, I'm really bummed out that I'm not going to be over there next month. But also I'm like, I probably wouldn't want to be over there next month. So maybe next year or, in a couple of months when things kind of die down. But we're not even allowed to go over to you guys. Are you even allowed? No, we're not allowed. I think we banned you, and then you guys ended up banning us as well. Not me personally, but yeah. Actually, it was you. Me one, yeah. It was you, yeah. It's just that no, just there's a big sign saying no. Yeah. If you're in a plane, you just see a sign in the air, and the pilot's like, forgot. Sorry, guys, we got to turn around. Yeah. Oh dear. But yeah, no, it's funny actually when you're watching the no fly kind of thing. The countries just kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And you're just like, yeah, no one can fly anywhere, so I don't think stuff might reopen. But are you going to be able to go there? That's another thing. Like with WrestleMania, like people over here, they're like, as the list was growing, like a week before WrestleMania, Ireland was put on the no-fly list basically, and you're just like, well, there you go. That's not happening, So anyway, getting back to
Money
Yeah,
in
we're
the Bank.
doing a real great job of talking about the topic
Exactly,
today.
exactly. My favorite one of all time, for the memes alone, was Dolph Ziggler's
Okay.
cash in.
Oh, for the pop alone.
For the pop alone. No, the memes, because there were some great memes. One of the best one was, it was the same year that the Pope abdicated. So, there was one, where, because it was 2012? I think it was 2012, because I was over in Rome at that point, and I'd just come home, and the Pope was abdicating. So, and there was one where,
Yeah, 2012.
it was, it was like, they're looking for a new Pope, and then it cuts to Dolph Ziggler with the Money in the Bank briefcase cashing in. It was like, fantastic. Look, the pop was huge. Wasn't a great world champion. I forgot AJ Lee was his floozy for a while. And,
Whoa!
What? She was!
You can, time out. You can knock CM Punk all that you want, but if you dare say a thing about AJ Lee,
okay,
all right, we're gonna have an issue.
Okay.
Let me explain why. Since you got to digress about your little hatred for John Cena,
I like AJ Lee, but like her and your man, who's she with, Big E, they were Dolph Ziggler's floozies.
They were. I hate using that word, but they were. I got a cool story to share though.
Go
about
for it,
AJ Lee, if I could.
I like that. I like that word because Hunter Golden uses it, and it always cracks me up every time. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Whatever. But no, cool story about AJ Lee, and people are gonna probably be like, "You're making this up. This isn't true." But she started her wrestling career essentially in New Jersey, and she was one of the wrestlers that I had the chance to see when she was just starting out. And for me, the coolest thing was that I have to take it for whatever the heck this is worth. I have the distinct notoriety of being the first fan to ever make a sign for AJ Lee.
No way, really?
Yep, she was wrestling
cool.
for a promotion called WSU, Women's something, and there might have been about 10 people in the crowd. She was just starting out. Her name was Miss April at the time, not AJ Lee.
Wow,
and,
really?
I had the chance to make a sign for her. I think the sign said "I miss April every month" because I thought I was clever with my pun. So that really says a lot about me, I guess. But so I've always had a connection to her. And then when I found out, now she's in the WWE, and she was again one of those people that she was so tiny that I didn't think this was going to happen. Let me see if I can change my virtual background super quick. There's a picture of me with AJ Lee and Shannon Moore from that event.
Oh wow, that's cool. That's very cool. I love AJ Lee. She's one of my favorite wrestlers who just got screwed over by no fault of her own. Well, no, she married CM Punk, so it's just like, okay. But no, she got screwed over purely by no fault of her own, and I wish she'd come back, but it's like, it's kind of hard. CM Punk is fighting everybody in the place where you want her to work, so it's like, okay.
But she was a standout star at that time of her life, so it did not shock me once she hit the main roster to see the success that she had. She's just such a great character, I love how tiny she is. She
is really, really small. Like, she's tiny. One thing that sucks though, like, I think she was too early. This is when women's wrestling wasn't really a thing, such. If she had been
a hybrid era, right?
It was, yeah. It was that weird transitional area where it was like you had Paige and AJ, but then at the same time you had Bellas. It was like, it was like, okay, we're not there yet.
Was there anything worse? This is the epitome of the Bellas being the Bellas. Was there anything worse than AJ Lee cutting her own pipe bomb, which was actually good, and the Bellas, they left their mics on and they just talked over it the entire time?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? It happened on an episode of Raw. I was so infuriated. They ruined the whole sector.
I can't remember. Was it her and Caitlyn who were in the Chickbusters? It was, wasn't it?
I know she was involved with Caitlyn.
Yeah,
No.
I think she was. Caitlyn I haven't heard. That's a name I haven't heard in ages, because Gary used to be obsessed with her. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was. I'm not too sure. But, AJ's career, it's a shame. Her and Paige had the distinction of being way too early and just missing out on the best parts of women's wrestling. Like, a couple of years later, 5 years later, they would have been We really would have seen something from the two
I mean,
of them.
it's possible, but at the same time, I love women's. Well, I'm not going to go that far, but I enjoy women's wrestling to a certain extent. But I really miss out on the valets. The stuff that Mandy's doing with Otis right now is so much more impactful to me than the matches that she's having.
Well, what I would agree on that is 2017 was the first women's Money in the Bank, and that's something to know. And Carmella won. I would agree that Carmella is a much better valet than she is a wrestler.
Well, can I make a correction?
Yeah.
Actually, James Ellsworth won. Initially.
Yes. He is his wife from history, though, completely. But
if that isn't the epitome of WWE right there, the first winner of the women's Money in the Bank match was a guy.
Yeah, well,
I love it.
That's the same thing when Harvey Whitman won the Divas Championship.
Santina won it, didn't he, at one point?
Santina won the
Battle Royal.
So it's just like, again, WWE, 2 steps forward, about 6 steps back. Like, come on. But what
They're just doing the electric slide. That's all.
Oh God, I just like. An interesting point about 2012 into like 2017. That was kind of like the dark period for this match, though. Like, because we had a lot of we had our first failure cash in, which was Damien Sandow.
No.
Damien Sandow was the first failure, wasn't he?
I thought John Cena was.
Oh, okay. It was. Yeah, it was.
Sandow won in 2013. Cena won in 2012.
You were right.
Yeah.
He did. You were right.
And if there was ever going to be a shocker, I think that was a huge shocker.
It was.
You're taking the guy that's supposed to be at the top and is unbeatable. Big match, John. How could he possibly not cash in? Now, unfortunately, what that opened up was a lot of guys. Well, not a lot, but several people to then not cash in. But because they set the precedent with such a big star in the company. Yeah. Nobody could, theoretically complain about it.
I think this did so much damage, though, because this is when, as soon as it wasn't a lock, we had that kind of dud. Also, apparently James Ellsworth is coming out of retirement, so he sounds bored.
Yeah. So is David Arquette, if anybody else is curious about names in wrestling.
He's still wrestling, though. He still does.
He's doing, yeah.
He does. He's in House of Hardcore matches. So it's like.
Yep, my friend saw him wrestle. I guess 6-7 months ago against Nick Gage, who, if you follow deathmatch wrestling,
why is he doing?
I know
that's not
and
fun.
The match was apparently brutal, and but he's gaining respect among indie fans. People don't hate David Arquette anymore. Yeah,
why? Listen. No, don't roll around in thumbtacks and barbed wire and you're a millionaire. That's ridiculous. It's like,
I think it's fantastic.
But it's also ridiculous. It's like, what are you doing? That's the whole point, But look, if that's what he wants to do, took the breakup with Courtney Cox bad and he wants to go off and do deathmatch wrestling, more power to... Look, John Moxley's doing the same thing. He left WWE to go roll around in thumbtacks and barbed wire in AEW, so fair enough. Fair enough. That's apparently what you do.
Of all the failed cash-ins, you think which one do you think was the biggest dud? Because you had Cena, Sandow, Baron Corbin.
Baron Corbin is a dud. Baron Corbin is a dud anyway.
Yes.
He needs to go back to being a barman, wrestling like a barman. Because that was a good gimmick. Strowman.
And he seems like a good dude. I've heard him in interviews, and he actually seems like he's a pretty nice guy, and he has legitimate fighting skills in terms of boxing and whatnot. They just use him. I don't know. Maybe we don't like him because we're not supposed to like him.
No,
could this be the case?
It's just I don't know. Baron Corbin, he has one of the coolest team music. Not now, but his team music is actually pretty good. End of Days, and then the Deep Six is a cool move.
Yes,
but that's it. He looked like his hairline was really bad beforehand, where it was just like. If it gets to that point, in general, dude, just shave your head. Seriously, it's okay. And he did it, and now he looks like a bald baby. And, it's just weird. The guy just looks strange. He should, but to be fair, he looked better when he had the waistcoat on and looked like a barman. That should have been his gimmick, where he's just a barman. But
that'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Were there any winners? I think we're both kind of agreed that Sandow probably had maybe the biggest dud of a cash.
Sandow had the biggest dud because everybody was expecting him to be. Also, you make it. Monster said you make it sound like rolling around the thumbtacks is just a hobby for them. Well, it kind of is. He's pretend fighting with barbed wire and thumbtacks. So it's just like Okay.
They're kind of pretend fighting. You should go to some of the shows that I go with. You guys are invited.
You know what, Dave? If I do go over to New Jersey, you're taking me to a deathmatch show. I want to see it.
Okay.
I want to see it because I've never seen it, and I really want to.
Well,
person.
if it makes you feel better, the first one I ever went to, I had to sit back down in my seat because I thought I was going to throw up. But now I love it and I cheer.
I know, I love it. Yeah, I just want to see it. I'm just like, right, let's go see the fluorescent light tube glass powerbomb tables.
Yeah.
And see what happens, because I think that's illegal here. So I want to go see it in the land of liberty.
Technically, it's illegal in New Jersey as well, but one of my friends runs a promotion.
Isn't it like
one of the biggest deathmatch ones?
Yeah,
they still do it.
Isn't New Jersey like the home of it? Was like invented?
It's bizarre, but when they have the deathmatch tournaments, they sneak away to like Delaware. Or like places that are on private property. I went to a deathmatch tournament. Well, it wasn't a deathmatch tournament, but I went to a deathmatch company, CZW, one time, and they had their show like on private land behind a strip club.
Oh wow!
And the strippers would come out to like as the valets to the ring. It was so bizarre.
Oh, that's amazing.
I was like 17 too, so I didn't even want to tell my parents like, yeah, that show I just went to, my friend, was really good.
God bless America. I have to say, God bless America. You have the best country in the world. I'm sorry. Like, the freedom to do that is amazing. And Ireland's like, oh no, that needs to be regulated by 16. It's like, no, let them go out and jump around the glass.
Yeah. At that show, I saw somebody do a shooting star press off the turnbuckle while lightning was hitting, and they were trying to rush to get the show done because it was outside. So, I mean, just good all around. I want to ask, who do you think was the biggest WTF winner for you? Like, who were you watching a match and you just went, maybe it was the way the match ended, maybe it was somebody you just didn't expect, or maybe it was somebody that made you angry. Who was that for you?
Jack Swagger.
Really?
Yeah, I never saw it. I still don't see it. Jack Swagger was one where I'm like, oh, that's a waste. That's not gonna materialize even if he wins. And it didn't. It was very poor. Kane, when he won, that was like, okay, why? You know, it doesn't need it. But
I love the fact that he cashed in the same night, like
it did.
49 minutes later.
It was cool where he just like absolutely just decimated Chavo. It was like, okay, you know.
And for those of us that were fans of him during the Attitude Era, it made up for the fact that he only had a one-day reign as the world champion, and he actually finally got to hold the belt for a little bit of time.
I liked his run with Austin. I thought it was pure story.
Oh yeah, it was super long. There's a lot to love.
No, I like the fact the way it was done. I thought it was a very clever way for that to happen, you know. But yeah, it kind of made up for him not having a run in the Attitude Era. Who else?
Well, it's easy for me. I mean,
who is it?
Last year, Brock Lesnar. He wasn't even.
Oh, that was funny though. That was really, really funny.
It was hilarious because I'm a Lesnar fan.
Yeah.
But the outrage that it caused on Twitter that these guys had been working this match this entire time, and Lesnar just runs up and wins.
But I thought it was great. Like it kind of makes sense. It's like, well, they were able to do it. Why not? You know, it makes sense. It's wrestling, right? Like again, Ellsworth won the ladder match.
Yeah,
you know, and technically Otis the same way that happened with the match this year. He didn't really win either. He just kind of caught it.
He just kind of caught it.
So it's like,
oh, there's so many videos and so many essays that angry little fans wrote online.
No, were there?
Oh, it's hysterical. The worst Money in the Bank match in history. The worst winner in history.
You know what's great?
WWE kills wrestlers.
You know what's great? Not caring about wrestling that much and just enjoying it. That's a better way. Watch it as a fun show that you watch and then forget about. Except if you know. But man, being in that toxic environment, I do not miss that one bit. Because it's just like, if you got upset over it, I'm sorry. Don't watch wrestling. Watch anything else. Okay, we're gonna have to, for anyone listening to us here on Phoenix, we're gonna have to take our hard break. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of the Wrestling Rewind. Go over to Nerd to Know Media right now and catch the rest of the show.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
All Alright, so you're listening to the podcast, you're like, hey, I'm not in Ireland, how do I get in touch? Well, TuneIn has you covered. That's how you can check us out live when we're on the radio. You go to TuneIn and download the app, or you can check out the live streams on nerdtoknowmedia.com or Phoenix 92.5 FM. If you want to get in contact with us, it's very easy. Nerd to Know Media everywhere. Nerd to Know Media on Twitter, Nerd to Know Media Instagram, Nerd to Know Media on Twitch, Nerd to Know Media at gmail.com if you want to reach out via email. Hope to hear from you soon. And we're back here on the stream. That's how you do it. The joys of having like a hard break that you have to meet all the time. So we're gonna do
it. Have you seen the show? That heartbreak just made me laugh. Because have you caught any episodes? I don't know if you have Hulu of the show Solar Opposites by the guy that made Rick and Morty.
No, I think we have Hulu, but I'm too lazy to use a VPN to get it. So
you got it. I hear you. You guys got to check it out if you can, because it's Rick and Morty, but kind of different. You know, it may or may not be set in the same universe. It's not quite as dark, but there's one line in it where they cut to what would be, if you're watching Hulu, there's different versions you can buy. You can buy regular Hulu, for like, I don't know, $10 a month, or you can pay an extra $3 or $4 a month and get Hulu without ads. And they take a hard break, like in the show, and they make a comment, like they just completely break the fourth wall, like consistently on it. And they're like, we'll be right back. Unless you paid for the more expensive version of Hulu, then how you doing?
Yeah, that's kind of what this is like. It's like, hey, you get the full show if you just go over and download it or watch it on YouTube. But yeah, like, it just is what it is, guys. What I will say is, like, for anyone who's upset watching this year's Money in the Bank, I personally preferred the way this was done rather than watching the standard Money in the Bank match. Because it was something unique. And, you know, the pop wouldn't be there. It would be very, very weird. And it's just, you know, it made more sense. It was something different. Now, do I want to see it again next year? No. But here's the question I have for you, Dave. Would you rather have the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania, or do you like it as its own thing?
I like the spectacle of WrestleMania so much that I was disappointed when they moved it to the pay-per-view.
So was I. Yeah.
Now, some of my favorite wrestling moments of all time have happened at that pay-per-view. You had, but not necessarily the Money in the Bank matches, which sounds kind of weird. But I mean, that's when you had Punk versus Cena. That's when you had AJ versus Cena. And I think for as much as you hate him, it's hilarious that Cena's always in some of the best matches that we, you know, recollect.
Yeah, hold on. Cena lost more. Or all Cena had to do was give Triple H the belt, even for a day. That's all he had to do. He just had to give him...
really? Okay. Can I call Booker T real quick? And you want to talk Triple H beef?
Can't talk about that. Sorry, I wasn't watching.
Okay.
I can't watch it.
Right. WrestleMania 19 didn't happen. You're right.
Well, I didn't see it until much later, so it's fine. Triple H can do no wrong. No wrong.
It was cool for me because when I started watching WrestleManias consistently, was WrestleMania 20.
Right.
I think I've seen them all by this point. But in terms of every year it became a thing with me and my one friend, now it's grown to a bunch of friends, would always watch them together. It was 20. So the next one is when Money in the Bank started. So it just kind of became the pantheon that I looked forward to each year.
I was the same. I remember I was working in a cinema with Gary and his now fiance, and we were sitting there going, oh, you know, I need time. This is actually how I met Gary. We were like talking about, I need to go home before 12 o'clock. He's like, why? I'm like, it's WrestleMania. He's like, what, WrestleMania? And that's how we actually became friends, because, you know, it was that kind of thing. And it was the year that the Money in the Bank, the one that Punk, the one that was in Orlando, that was that year. And that was always reminded me, because I remember watching it, and I just got back from work and I was like, oh cool, I'll go watch this. And I asked
the first one in Orlando, right?
The first one in Orlando, yeah.
I think that there was either 24 or 25. I don't feel like Googling.
Yeah, it was one of them anyway, but I'll always remember that was it. So yeah, Money in the Bank has a special place for similar reasons, because you remember it. But once it was moved to its own pay-per-view, yeah, like it fits a lot better than the throwaway shows that have, like, you know, Breaking Point or Capital Punishment or something stupid. So at least it makes sense. It's a much better kind of show to watch. But yeah, there's still something about WrestleMania, you know, any match at that, it was really kind of lost. It was like, you know, you knew you had your Undertaker match and you knew you'd have your Money in the Bank match, and now there is that kind of gap missing. But they filled it in by having different things, like having a ladder match or something at WrestleMania, which is just Just seems to be a thing now. But
I like those concepts, and I think Money in the Bank can stand on its own. Because I do have a problem with certain gimmick pay-per-views. I have an issue with Hell in a Cell. Yep, exactly.
This makes
Hell
no
in a
sense.
Cell, no sense. That should be a match that if you're in a real, true blood feud, that is the end of it. Not just, well, we have a pay-per-view coming up, so we're going to stick y'all in a cell. Like, that was never what the conception was.
Don't get me wrong, right? The way Lockdown was done, yeah, that makes sense. Lockdown is cool, right? Because it's like, it's a cage match, right? But
Hell in a Cell... about Lethal Lockdown in TNA?
Yeah, I'm talking about the pay-per-view in general, Lockdown, where every match is in a cage in TNA.
Oh, yeah. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And then Lethal Lockdown is when they put the roof on it. And it's like, okay, cool. Right. But the thing about Hell in a Cell is, like, yeah, as you said, it's a blood feud. Like, I hate you so much, we're going to kill each other in this match. And that's why it became not Hell in a Cell, Match in a Cell.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like... And the worst thing about Hell in a Cell is actually you can't really see the match until stuff starts happening, which is when you have the big spots. So it was just a standard, spot, rest hold, spot, finish. It's like, that's very boring and very hard to see in a cage. So yeah, I'm so glad they got rid of that, because I hate Hell in a Cell as a pay-per-view. It's ridiculous and redundant. It makes no sense. TLC makes a bit more sense, because you can have your matches, the chair match or the stair match, which I'm glad they only did that once.
I remember that was the TLC plus S.
Ridiculous. But Money in the Bank, okay, you're right. Money in the Bank is a premise that stands on itself. It stands by itself. The Seth Rollins one, I agree, is great to watch. And cash in. But if you had to pick between that or RVD, which one would you pick?
Obviously, Seth holds a special place in my heart. My brother was actually at that WrestleMania. It was his first real big wrestling show that he got to go to. But nothing compares to that RVD environment and the match. Because Seth Rollins was shock value. Yeah. RVD, there was a full storyline and an angle that went into it. And it was cool to see somebody actually announce in advance, hey, I'm cashing in on you at this time in my environment. Get ready for it.
Yeah.
The only other time they had almost done that was Daniel Bryan, because Daniel Bryan swore he wasn't going to cash in till WrestleMania, and then all of a sudden he just popped up and cashed it in. So like, okay, that was like a cool little shock thing.
Yeah,
but I thought they were going to do that. I thought he was going to wait till Mania and challenge for the title.
Yeah, well,
so what is it for you, Seth or RVD?
I prefer RVD. Because it gave us a really, really good match and gave us an unbelievable environment. And, if things had been a little bit differently, if RVD had a bit more restraint, things would have been very different.
Flaws were different.
Our flaws were different, yeah. Things would have been different, would have been very, very different. So it's kind of like, at the time, I'm like, this is amazing. In hindsight, it's kind of sad because you know what comes next. But Seth cashing in was great too. Like, we'll do it this way. From a cash-in, Seth's one is the best.
Yes. From
a match that resulted from it, RVD is the best. I think that's probably the best way to look at it. Edge's one for the first one is still great, but Seth's absolute surprise is just out of this world incredible.
Well, and Seth had the distinct note. It's funny. There's a couple of these cash-ins that people always put at the top of their list. One of them is Dolph Ziggler, which we mentioned. Another one is Seth's. They just always seem to be in the top. But what people kind of forget, if you look in the context of the storyline, these guys were heels during their cash-ins, and they got huge pops. For Dolph Ziggler, it was because the fans generally just liked the dude and were happy he was finally getting his, regardless of what would happen down the line, they were just excited he was finally getting a championship belt on the world title stage. And for Seth, you had a match that, honestly, very few people wanted to see.
Yeah.
People were angry that it was Roman. They were angry that it was Brock. We were going through a fatigue of these two constantly fighting against each other and being at the top of the mountain. And how do you save it? You send out Seth and you surprise everybody, and the show goes off on a great note. The pyro was amazing. I'm a big pyro fan. But, or if you watch it on the network nowadays, Seth ran in on Brock and some mysterious other dude.
Here's some interesting facts, right? Dean Ambrose was the second wrestler to do a same night cash in. He held contract for 57 minutes, which was
that's so his character. I love it.
Bailey was the fourth wrestler to do second night cash-in. Fastest female to cash-in, held the contract for 1 hour 25 minutes. Brock Lesnar was the first unannounced winner. Held the contract 57 days.
Unannounced winner. That was such a good match too.
Yeah.
And I was excited because this was the time when you had like, oh my god, we're talking about this like it was so long ago. This was a year ago, less than a year ago. That's how crazy the world's been.
Well, here's what.
The entrants are so great.
They were.
Ricochet, McIntyre, Andrade, Balor, Corbin, Ali, Orton. Like these, that's a stacked match.
But I love it. I think it made it. It made it for me. It was brilliant.
It's because we're trolls at heart, Derek.
Oh yeah, heels and trolls at heart has to be.
Absolutely.
Here's one for you as well, right? So according to Wikipedia, John Cena, the first wrestler to not win a world championship in a cash-in, drew to winning a match by disqualification. The second wrestler to give his notice prior to cash-in, but Damien Sandow was the first wrestler to lose clean.
There's always got to be an asterisk next to Cena's name.
Always next to it. Yes.
Oh, right, because you have to protect him, right? Yeah.
You have to, exactly. So that's it. Dave, something as well I want to talk to real quick. WWE NXT TakeOver in your house is happening June 7th. Really excited to see that. I
need to do some cleaning. Oh, that's the name?
The name.
Oh, okay.
The old pay-per-view. I love it. I think it's great. So excited. I think it's very clever.
What's the date on that again?
June 7th.
Okay, cool.
I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be really fun. I think they should have done this sooner. Should have WrestleMania in your house. That would have made more sense. But hey, I think WWE now are starting to finally find their groove now with this and get over the world is on fire and we can't do anything. So yeah, look, I'm looking forward.
Is that why Seth had his theme changed? You couldn't burn it down. It's already burning.
I hate Seth's theme. I'm sorry. That gimmick is rubbing me completely the wrong way.
Oh, that just reminded me of something from the first Money in the Bank match. I thought this was the coolest thing, and mind you, I think I was like 14 or 15 at the time. So what I think was cool, whatever, it's cool. Screw y'all. That's gonna ingratiate myself to fans. But when Kane was the last entrant to the first ever Money in the Bank match, and because they did, instead of doing the pyro around the ring, the fire, what they did was they had the stage hit pyro and all the ladders on the stage went up in flames.
That was cool.
I thought that was so cool.
That was cool. And
I love set pieces like that.
WWE need to do stuff like that again. That's what's missing. It's missing that sense of, oomph, something bigger, But Dave, I think we will call it there with our overtime. Thanks to everyone who stuck around with us. Thanks to Monster Mutt 93 in the chat for just adding to it. That was great. And yeah, so Dave, is there anything you want to plug, sir, before we get out of here?
If you guys didn't have a chance to check it out now, it just came out this weekend, you really should check out From the Dark. It's a little conspiracy podcast that Darragh and I and Ian Kelly are doing. And right now it's monthly, maybe bi-weekly. We'll see how our schedules end up matching up. But it was a lot of fun. I think it'll be cool if you guys get in on the ground episode, and you definitely see an evolution over time. We got kinks to work out, just like we did here with the rewind, but it was we got into some really cool topics. Screw you, Tom DeLonge.
See, I love Tom DeLonge. That's the problem. It's just like I totally disagree. I'm like, okay, but I respect it, and you can listen to it. I have to say, it's the most epic rant I've ever heard on the show, so you can check it out. And you look, you can say a lot of things, but you can't say that we don't have free speech here on the Nerd to Know Media Network. Guys, go over, check out all the shows. We have a lot of content coming up. Pretty much there's a show dropping on YouTube every single day. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. A lot of old content from pretty much everywhere is being dropped as well. Wrestling versus Gladiatorial Combat is my favorite one, which I've remastered and re-edited. Some bad wrestling video game reviews are coming up. So yeah, like there's a bunch for everything, and we'll be back next week as we always are. Here on
well, here's a quick teaser before Derek does his awesome outro.
Go for it.
I'm going to interrupt him. He's like, goddamn. I am looking into doing some reaction videos. I got to make sure I do them correctly so we don't get any strikes or anything. But I found some cool matches of guys that Ring of Honor have put up for free on their YouTube channel, including one of my favorite matches of all time, which is from Night of the Grudges 2 with AJ Styles versus Paul London. So when I figure out all the kinks for that one, I'm going to do a reaction one, so you can kind of watch the match in the corner. You'll hear my take on it at the same time. So just some interesting things we're working on the channel. It's not all old content. Don't get that idea. There's new shows dropping literally every day as well.
Every day. Literally.
And we're looking for supplemental content. As I think it's just a great time. Get on board, find personalities you like. And don't forget, we don't hate wrestling.
Oh, that's the main thing. We love wrestling. Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew not covering it every week in depth would make you not hate something? It's brilliant. But yeah, guys, if you haven't subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff. We'll be back next week. Join us live. And there's Dave with his AJ Styles. He loves AJ Styles. So if you love AJ Styles, subscribe. If you don't, he'll be sad. Guys, we'll see you next week.
I kept him hidden all match.
Guys, we'll see you next week here on The Rewind. Bye, guys.